Okay. Hope this is recording sound. Camera was doing some really weird things. Okay, so as with any discussion about anything on this channel, I make an hour-long video and I still feel like I haven't really gotten to the point. In these Tibetan exercises, I probably haven't emphasized enough what I was talking about, which is that these are spiritual exercises. What is that supposed to mean? What's a spiritual exercise? Anything, I suppose, that brings you closer in contact with spirit. And that doesn't necessarily mean anything outside of you. When you're working with the body's energy, especially powerful energies like sexual energy, and you're moving them through different parts of your body and flooding higher centers with this energy, you're going to have a very interesting experience. And so I don't think it's in there that much, but the more I practice them, and this has happened to me every time I let them go and then I come back to them and I start practicing them again, I am incredibly impressed with, by the time I get to the last exercise, I am flooded with dynamic energy in the higher centers. And today it was like I was sitting there, I was on the floor and all this energy was coming up and it was like I couldn't get up. It was so powerful. And so I think in that sense, if you're on a path of like Kundalini yoga, these exercises will make absolute perfect sense for you. While I was talking about in the last video that I believe they break up that denser energy, Jing, and move it to the higher centers in the body, what I didn't really mention is that all of these exercises, while they do, and the vortexes that he talks about are like, right along the center of the body, including the torso, the sides of it, and then, of course, as it splits down to the lower half of the body, the knees, and so it's still balanced, but then everything else is basically right in a straight line. And so to me, what this does is channel energy through the central channel, that thing that's in the center of your body or a little bit to the front of it, where energy can go up and down. We don't often have a lot of energy moving upwards in the central channel, and this is the reversal or the inversion that Taoists talk about, because when creation happens, it's that higher form of energy and then it comes down and it gets denser. Reversing it is the path of rejuvenation, and you take those denser energies and you go backwards. You make them lighter and more spiritual. And I think that's what these exercises do. And if it weren't for, I think, one of them, then you could characterize pretty much every one of these exercises as imitating a snake. Obviously snakes don't have legs or whatever and that kind of thing, but as all of these exercises through so many different traditions often come from imitating animals, or at least that's the way we look at it, I think there's something to be said about that. And what I find is this central channel and the serpent energy, the Kundalini energy, if you want to use those terms, is incredibly stimulated and directed upwards in the central channel. I think these exercises are much more important than people typically give them credit for. Maybe other people talk about this stuff too, I don't know, but it usually to me is in that simple framework of this is good for you and good for your health and so on. Well, if you approach it the right way and you practice them the way they're supposed to be practiced every single day, it doesn't take that long, and get up to 21 repetitions at least of each exercise, then I think you'll start to realize how powerful they can be. It's sort of my opinion that these types of exercises are the types of exercises that our ancestors were really first performing. This to me goes way, 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 way back further than just, the Tibetan tradition or the, Indian yogic traditions and all that, wherever these exercises may have come from. And I also should say that the origin story of where these exercises may have come from in the books that are published, and it came from one book with a very specific story, might be entirely fictitious. I think people were doing that a lot more back then, although they still do seem to do it now. And I think way back then, because I think this book was written in like the 30s or 40s, people were able to get away with that kind of thing, you know, in order to give some type of credence or value to these exercises. They could just make up a story and say, I learned these exercises from this guy who learned it from all of these lamas in a monastery somewhere in Tibet or whatever, and therefore it has validity. And it's really difficult to go back and check. Even in fact now, nobody knows anyone who practices these exact exercises all the time. You know, so there you go. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that in the supplemental information in this book, there's a lot of spiritual stuff. Not just the dietary stuff, but he talks about using mantras and things like that. You know, so just wanted to throw that out there. There were a couple other things that I wanted to say. I think one thing that probably isn't explained enough is the curling of the head this way. And so there's the very first exercise when you're down on your back and you lift your legs up and you curl your head forward. I think the tendency is to lift up further, like you're doing a sit-up while you're also pulling your legs up that way, and that really puts bad strain on the lower back and takes your whole base away, which is like your upper back and your chest. Really, you're just supposed to do this and pull your head up this way. And if you think about that way when you're lifting your legs up and curling your head under like this towards your chin, you maintain a lot more stability. And I'm able to do that without hurting my lower back or straining my hamstrings. So that's always something to focus on when you do that. And I'm not sure if it's mentioned in the last exercise, but you're basically doing the, what is it? The cobra or whatever. And when you're back and your butt's in the air and you're doing that push-up type thing like that, you can also curl your head under, and you'll start to notice as you do these specific things what you're doing to those energy centers. You're really trying to stimulate those energy centers, and when you have blood and fresh energy up there in the second position of each exercise, there's usually only two. When you're in the second position, which is like the contraction and sort of breathing in, then you curl your head again, and you can really feel where that energy is pooling. I'm not sure if that one mentions curling the head under, but then also in the second one, or the third one, I guess, where you're sitting here and then you go forward, but you don't like lean forward. You just move your head and your chin down to your chest as far as it can go, and then you do a back bend, and then you come down. I think the thing is just to like, you know, stop when you're completely upright, because this is the only thing you're doing, you know. But it's important also to keep stimulating those centers, and so you curl the head back down under, and then you do it again, and come back, and then curl the head under, and then go back. So there's just little finer points to all of the exercises that I find should be noted. And I've done them for a long time. I'm not saying that I do them perfectly by any means or anything, but I've just noticed that these little things help me in doing them correctly. And in the third one, no, I'm sorry, the fourth exercise, the fourth rite, when you go back and you lift yourself up, and then you tip your head back, and you look like a crab or whatever, and you come back and you sit down, you sort of stop like right here, and there's this like tendency to want to stay there and then immediately go back into the next one. I think it's important to go down and completely breathe out and relax, and again let your head hang down, and then get back up into the next position and do it again. And he actually mentions this, that every single exercise, as you're repeating it, you should relax in between. That's very interesting, you know. To me, it's very interesting because it really sets everything apart from what we think of as physical exercise. You don't want to rest as much as possible. You want to exercise as much as possible, and so it's work, 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 tension, 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 and then you rest, and you're like, oh God, that was exhausting. In these, it's important to rest not just in between each different exercise, but in between each repetition of each exercise. So try that out as well. Give yourself a whole and then do it again. And you'll also find that your ability to continue for an extended period of time those exercises is increased if you give it a full rest in between. And then I want to say more about the experience of moving this energy upwards through the center of the body. I think it's incredibly important. Everything I say recently seems to fall flat to me because I'm doing a lot of things, and I feel like I don't have the vocabulary to describe them all of a sudden, or the experiences that I'm having are becoming so real that all the words seem meaningless lately. And so that's my own thing, but I want to impress upon people the fact that I think that these are extremely valid exercises to take, because you can basically do them anywhere. You don't even need a yoga mat. You just need enough space to be able to perform them. You can do them in hotel rooms. You can do them in your, friend's house while you're waiting, to go out on the town or something like that. You can take them anywhere with you, and it's not a whole crazy yoga routine where you have to stretch out and do all kinds of stuff. You just need enough space where you're right there, and you have enough space to spin around and do whatever. Now, I think they're very convenient in that way too. And the actual experience of moving this energy upwards can be breathtaking. It can also be a little disturbing if you're not used to moving energy, that type of energy, through different parts of your body, where you might actually lose your breath or whatever because this energy is coming up here and you're not used to having that, and it kind of freaks you out. Again, while it's also important to rest in between all those sets, it's also important to take things slow. If you've done all of the second exercise and the first exercise, and you've spun around 50, 60 times, and you've got lots of energy moving through your body, you've done 21 of the second exercise, and then you move on to the next one, and you get down all the way, and your head is down here, and you've got all this blood. You don't just up here and then start doing the back bend, because if you up here, then you're going to lose it and pass out. There's a lot of energy that's moving through you, and it's not just blood rushing to the head, but that's part of it, And so I think it's very important to take all of the little steps seriously, and raise up very slowly, be very in control of your energy, and then continue the exercises, and do continue them in a controlled manner, So that's that. And I really just do want to emphasize with this whole thing that whether you're connecting to the divine presence or some external energy, some external being or spirit, Reiki or divine energy, or some Christ pattern or grid or whatever the heck you want to call it, I think it is also very important to have a full understanding of the energies that are already within your body and how spiritual they actually are, and the experience that can be gained over and over and over again just from working with, connecting to, breaking up, and moving those energies through other centers in your body. You will discover what a truly spiritual being you are naturally. And I will say that by the end of the entire set, if you're doing it all right, and you've been practicing for quite a while, that the resultant feeling that you're left with throughout your entire space when you finish these exercises is orgasmic. Alright? That word I'm sure you know very well, and hopefully then that will motivate you to try them.